I'm not gonna guilt him into staying. I would. I'm still trying to guilt him into giving. So we are 10 years into his promise, and I haven't gotten yet. So
I don't know what you're talking about.
with inflation, you know what that number has grown to?
I don't want to know.
Might have to sell the house.
Yeah.
Any leads on the trailer?
No,
You're not gonna.
no, there's no leads. We just have to buy a new one. So.
I'm getting out of here quick before it starts collecting.
Oh, good. I don't have to take an assessment.
Yes, you do.
Did we pick a place to eat yet?
I understand if it's all right with you.
Yeah, we haven't been there in a long time.
I was wondering about,
Yeah. So now you don't have to. Is it open on Sunday?
I don't go till it's time to clean up. Robin's on her way now, so. Megan's already there. That's why she wasn't in church today. So Megan was already there.
This is their busy weekend.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next one comes up in March, so.
Whatever. Another tournament?
Basketball.
You're the driver.
That's bigger than this one.
And somebody made us all late.
Yeah, Robin and Megan they're all part of that. Yeah. This is year 18 or 19 for that one.
I was looking at a few places last night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can't
Oh,
make
yeah.
up for it when you lose.
Yeah,
your
all the time.
place, and it's all-
Is that at the
all
same
off the
place?
table.
No.
Well,
No, we hold that one in 3 different locations.
Yeah.
Those 3 sites. This volleyball tournament used to be at 4 sites. Now it's at 1, which is really nice. We got 1 big site for that. But the basketball ones are still at 3. So yeah, it's a big deal. We had our state cross country a few weeks ago. We had 470 runners, I think.
Oh, wow, where was that at?
That was at Concordia University. The cross country track, the cross country course runs along the lakefront. It's really kind of a cool course for the kids. And then the national tournament for that was last weekend. So the national Lutheran Grade School cross country tournament was last weekend.
Wow.
And then in May we have the Lutheran Grade School State Track and Field Championship. And there we'll get somewhere between 400 and 500 participants also for that.
Wow.
Yeah, so the events have gotten to be quite large. So, all right, I'm just going to grab a little juice here and then we'll get ourselves rolling.
I'm seeing. If I have to read,
We can do. I might.
Okay. All right, we are welcome. I know we are live now, so welcome to anybody that's gathering with us by way of our live stream. And I know there are people that do that because I get comments and notes regarding it. So welcome to all who are here, and then we will be in chapter, I believe, 27, correct? I think we are, Isaac, we just finished the fact that Esau takes his, he takes Hittite to be his wife, and Hittites to be his, and of course that flies right in the face of his father, and certainly in the face of mom too. Now we come to this story of Isaac blessing Jacob. Now, if you remember last week, we had talked about the fact that all the characters in all of the, in these various sections have been questionable, and at least in their actions. And yet, what we see through here, though God does not condone sin, what he does do is that he will even use our sinfulness for his will and purpose. And we see that in this blessing of Jacob, because obviously it is Isaac's desire to bless whom? To bless Esau. But through some trickery, through some chicanery, we see Jacob is the one who is blessed. And so the will of God is still accomplished, even in the midst of our own sinfulness. So, does somebody want to read chapter 27, the first 4 verses? We'll just kind of take this in little sections.
Verse 14.
Oh, we're at verse 14? Okay, that's what I asked before. Okay, so, all right, then we will go on to verse 14. Does somebody want to read 14 through 17?
So he went and took them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared delicious food such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And the skins of the young goats she put on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. And she put the delicious food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob.
Okay, so here we see that Esau is out hunting for the kind of food that Jacob loves, or that Isaac loves, and in the meantime, Rebecca happens to have some of that food there already. That's kind of interesting. And so what she's going to do is she's going to prepare some of this food that Isaac loves, and with the purpose of tricking him to give his blessing to Jacob. And so she not only prepares the food, but also they've got to, because Esau was this hairy guy and hairy all over the place, they kind of have to costume Jacob. So it kind of reminds me of this Halloween time, doesn't it? Where we're going to now go put on costume, or at least Steve will. But we're going to put on costumes and go out for the purpose of tricking, right? Or that trick or treat. So here we see her doing the very same thing. She is going to try to trick her husband, and also she's going to reward him with a treat for providing what she wants to get out of it. Now, to do that, though, is she's got to costume up Jacob so that Jacob looks or sounds or smells like Esau. See, because while Isaac might be old and Isaac might be blind, he hasn't lost all of his senses. And so she's going to need to kind of take this as far as she can. So what does she do? She puts some of Esau's clothes on Jacob. She puts animal skins on the back of his hands so that his hand... Now, isn't that interesting? I mean, and Isaac knows there's something up. Because even, if you feel the hair on your arms, or even if you have like really hairy arms, right? Does that feel the same as the skin, as like the fur from a rabbit skin or something along those lines? No, not at all. So what will happen is as Isaac will, put his hands on Jacob, he's going to go, well, there's hair there, but it doesn't quite feel right, and we see that Isaac will do some questioning during the midst of this, but she tries to costume him up as good as possible, and she wants him to get this done as quick as possible. Why? Because Esau might get back pretty quick with the actual the actual food that he's out to hunt for. And so then she puts the delicious food and the bread, which she's prepared, she puts it in the hands of Jacob, and then he is going to go. Now, what do we see Jacob not doing in the midst of this?
Saying I won't do it.
Yeah, we don't see Jacob saying, this is wrong. We don't see him saying, I'm not tricking my dad. We don't hear him say, Mom, are you sure you want to do this? We don't see any of that. We just see him go along with her. So, we see that he's not a reluctant partner in the midst of this.
And in verse 11, though, he says to his mom, "What my brother's a hairy man, I'm a man whose skin. What if my father touches me?"
Right.
But he still wasn't.
So no, he's not sorry. He's just saying, what happens if I get caught? Okay, it would be the same thing as when you were with your brothers or sisters, and one of you was gonna, and one of you were gonna do something that you weren't supposed to do, and or you were telling her to do something. Well, in my case, I would be telling my sister to do something that well, what if I get caught? Well, then this. Then you see what I mean? Then we make up all those kind of stories. And, oh yeah. So you do what you can to get your sisters and brothers in trouble. And so you don't. But then also you question, well, what happens if I get caught? And here Rebecca was saying, don't worry about getting caught. If it really goes south on us, I'll take the hit, And she's, remember, Isaac loves Rebecca with everything, and so she's pretty certain that even if she has to take the hit, everything will be okay. Everything's going to be just fine. So.
Did you read this? What Luther said? If I'd been Jacob, I would have dropped the dish and run from the scene as though my head were on fire.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting when you say that. When Luther says, if that was me, I would have dropped the dish, I would have ran away. And yet, how often, would we look at that and say, well, I would never do that? And how often have we tried to deceive our parents? Unless you guys were perfectly innocent people. Ray's already shaking his head no. Nathan even shook his head no. Thank you for being honest. I've told you the story of me opening the Christmas presents. I did all kinds of sneaky stuff. So, I tried to deceive them all the time. Oh yeah, my mom and what's that smoke in the backyard? Oh, Mom, that's nothing. Don't worry about it. Here I had the garage on fire. So I'm having to put the garage out of put the fire out in the garage, and Mom, no. It's nothing. It's some stuff that's going on behind the garage, by the neighbors. No, it was Jeff set the garage on fire. So we try to deceive our parents all the time. So, no, I wasn't out drinking. No, I would have never done that, Mom. So, yeah, we do that, and Luther's words are noble, but, let's be honest, we all do this. So that's what we see here. All right, enough of that nonsense. Let's go to, before I get myself in more trouble, since we're recording, 18 through 25. Somebody want to just pick up the story? 18 through 25.
He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac asked his son, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" "The Lord your God gave me success," he replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not." Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, so he blessed him. "Are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. Read 25.
Yeah, all the way to 25.
Okay. Then he said, "My son, bring me some of your game to eat, so that I may give you my blessing." Jacob brought it to him and he ate, and he brought some wine and he drank.
Okay, so, of course, this is such a story we're so familiar with, but let's pick out a couple of different things in here. So he goes to his father and he says, "My father," and then, of course, Dad says, "Who are you, my son?" And part of that is probably because it didn't sound like Esau. You know? This is just, so, again, Isaac's old, but that just didn't sound like Esau. But anyways, he says, so Jacob says, "I am Esau." So there we go. That would certainly eliminate the idea of any reluctancy, right? Unless, now, maybe it does make you wonder, though, as he's doing this, you know, is he boldly saying, "I'm Esau"? Did he try to, you know, change his voice a little bit so it sounded like Esau? Was he really nervous? Esau. You know, who knows what it was like, but he does certainly go on with the ruse. All right? And he says his name is Esau. And then he goes, "I've done what you told me. Now sit up and eat some of my game so that you will bless me." So kind of like, well, let's get this over with. All right? So, but Isaac, there's that but. I mean, that's interesting that word is part of this sentence. But that shows that there's some doubt in Isaac. It doesn't say, well, Isaac just says to his son, "How did you find it so fast?" It says, but he does, because, you know, now it's kind of head scratching time. You are here awful fast for going out and killing, right? Killing, and then what happens after you kill the game?
Have to let the blood drain out.
Yeah, you gotta field dress the stuff, you know, out in the, you know, you cut that open, you pull out all the stuff out of the end. Any of you ever go deer hunting? You know, you gotta do all this. You don't bring it home and do all that stuff in the house. You leave all that stuff out in the field, you know? So then you gotta let it all drain. You have to clean all the stuff out of there. Then you have to take the skins off of it. You've got to prepare the meats, all of that. Whether it be birds where you got to tear the feathers off, or whether it be animals, you got to tear the skins off. It's a lot of work to get it ready to make. And so now you have to do all that work, plus then you've got to prepare it. So, you know, this is something where the time frame just doesn't add up at all. And then Isaac says to him, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" And now we see that the next thing is not just Jacob sinning against his father. We see what?
He says, "The Lord your God gave me success."
We see Jacob sinning against God. We see Jacob calling upon God's name in vain. This is second commandment stuff. Okay? So he is calling upon God's name to go with that lie.
He says, "The Lord your God," not the Lord our God.
Right.
The Lord
Your God. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, that would be something that would probably not be an unusual statement for Esau to say. And it would have been, and again, it was Jacob calling down upon the true God. I think that's the main piece here that is really ought to be noted, because it is the God. So Isaac, of course, says to Jacob, he trusts. He trusts that statement. So he says, come near that I might feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not. This just doesn't seem right. You don't sound like Esau. You sound like Jacob. But you say you're Esau. You swear upon God's name. All of these kind of things. And so he says, but he doesn't recognize him because his hands are hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blesses him. And then he says one more time, though, are you really my son? And isn't it...
More wine. There's some more wine.
Yeah. Are you really my son? And interesting, he responds using the same words that are used, that God calls, for the same name that God calls himself. I am. That's very, again, second commandment stuff. Okay? And so he says, okay, well, bring it near to me that I might eat of my son's game and bless. Isn't it interesting? Eat of my son's game and bless you. Now, the way it's worded, it looks like I want to bless, his game, but I'm going to, and then I'm going to, or I'm going to eat of his, but I'm going to bless you. It's almost as if Isaac knows that this is Jacob. Almost as if Isaac still knows that he is blessing Jacob. And it makes you wonder because Isaac knew that Jacob was supposed to get the birthright. And it makes you wonder if Isaac, if this is a response, like a repentant response to God. That he says here, so bring his, so bring it to me that I may eat of my son's game, because even if that game was prepared by Rebekah, Esau would have killed it earlier, because Jacob was not the killer. Jacob was not the hunter. Esau did all the hunting. So no matter where the food came from, the food always would have come from, through Esau. So it's possible, it's very strongly possible here, that when Isaac blesses Jacob, he's not blessing him falsely or under false pretenses. That he's actually blessing the one whom God wanted blessed, even though, Jacob is under costume. Even though Jacob sinned in the process, Isaac is the one who remembers God's command. And he blesses him anyway. So he says, here, I'll eat some of my son's food, and I will bless you. Okay? So we see that. And so he comes, so he eats the food, and like Emily said, we better stuff a little bit more wine down him, that type of thing. And he drank. All right. So, 26 through 29. Somebody want to read that?
Then the father Isaac said to him, come here, my son, and kiss me. So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of heaven's dew and of earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed.
Okay. So here you certainly would think that Isaac believes that he's truly blessing Esau. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe as he smells him, he recognizes, even though even though the clothes might be Esau's, but the scent is Jacob. It could be that too. It's kind of hard to pass, it's kind of hard to hide your scent. I mean, it's, you learn that after many, many, many years of marriage, that you can even sense the other person just by their scent, Sometimes really good, sometimes probably not so good, But you know that. And it would be hard to think that Isaac didn't know his 40-plus-year-old sons, But the point being is he gives them the full blessing of God, that he will be fruitful in his endeavors, that he will that others will respect him and serve him. That nations will bow down to him, and he also curses anyone who tries to hurt or harm him. And but he also says, "Be Lord over your brothers," but that's also a statement of caring for your family, not just not just lording over them, that you rule over them, but that you also, that you're the head of the household. And so with the head of the household comes the responsibility of taking care of everybody too. So you have all of that is in the midst.
There's no messianic blessing there.
No, not in here. Not in here, other than the messianic, the only messianic blessing would be inferred. And the inference there would be that that you are going to be the one continuing the line of where the Messiah, that type of thing. But no, this is really a passing of the torch. The messianic blessing to this would have come earlier when God said that my line will go through Jacob and not Esau. So there, that's why I said we can infer this here, because what God said back then has occurred,
Or could it be because he was still wondering if it really was that he would give them messianic blessing to Esau when he was?
Yeah, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. I mean, you can, however we look at it, what we can be certain of is that God's will was accomplished. And his will was that Jacob was the one through whom the birthright would go. And it happened. Whether it happened, maybe not in the most noble of ways, but it happened. Okay? So, now we get to the next part of the story. Somebody want to do 30 to 38?
After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I am your son," he answered, "your firstborn Esau." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who is it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me too, my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? He has deceived me these 2 times. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, I made him Lord over you, and amid all his relatives, his servants, and I sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son? Esau said to his father, do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father. Then Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him.
All right. So here, I mean, this now, as we pondered a little bit, is it possible that Isaac knew that it was Jacob, that he had repented? We see here in this text, no, that wouldn't have been the case. That Isaac really was deceived, totally deceived, and in being totally deceived, he also then tells Esau who deceived him, and yet nowhere's in here do you see Isaac. Remember when we said last week where you look at all the characters, Isaac, Rebekah, Esau and Jacob, none of them have really been totally noble through this whole thing. Well, here's another area where we can see that with Isaac, is that Isaac never one, repents to God for it, but two, recognizes that this is what God wanted all along. You see what I mean? So Isaac is miserable because he fully intended to bless Esau. And so he poured out all of his blessing on Isaac, or at least, all of the blessing. That's when Esau is saying, well, don't you have some more for me? And he said, and it was sort of like, well, I gave it all to him. And there's no take-backs. Remember we used to do that? No take-backs. And that's really kind of what we are seeing in here, is that he poured out such a thorough blessing upon Jacob, that he left nothing for the other son, the second son. And that, I think, that's kind of another remark. And that's different than what we would see in our world today. You probably would not pour out, unless you didn't like your younger son, or you thought your younger son was going to be some trouble. You probably did not give everything to others, and leave you with destitute. So that's not so much that goes on in our world, but here it was fully. But now, part of the reason they did that, part of the reason that it would have been done, everything would have got passed on to the older brother, was not to leave the younger brother or the rest in the lurch. It was because it was trusted and believed that older brother, by being the patriarch then of the family, was going to care for and do right with everybody. So by blessing the older, you're taking care of the younger, in that sense. So it's not the ignoring of one, but again, here his blessing is so thorough that he got nothing left to offer him. So, who was it then that I blessed? And that was I. And as soon as Esau heard the words of his father, he cries out with exceedingly great and bitter cry. So, I mean, this is it's like a horror that sets into him. Well, what have you done? And you probably throw a few other words in there, and you know what I mean. This is terrible. Bless me, even give me something, Father. But then Isaac says, your brother came deceitfully, and he has taken away all your blessing. And then he says, is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has cheated me these 2 times. Now, the first time, did he really cheat him? When he took his birthright. Did he really cheat him? No. Esau willingly gave up his birthright.
For some soup.
Yeah, for some soup. Now, the soup was probably near as good as my chili. But I don't know that it is birthright worthy, you know. And so that wasn't as deceitful as it was Esau not caring for that, or Esau really not, he didn't put much value to it if he was willing to trade it for a bowl of lentil soup and a hunk of bread, you know. So, he took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my blessing. Interesting, he says, he has taken away my blessing, and that would be how the world would look at it. That he has taken away, but really, that's not what happened. What's happened is God has given him the blessing. Jacob didn't take it away from anybody. God had promised it right from the beginning. And he had never made any bones about it, that this was going to be Jacob's, that the line was going to go through Jacob. So Jacob didn't steal it. God gave it to him. But the world sees it different. In the same, and you know, think about that as an application for us. God has called you to be his precious child. He has called you in the waters of baptism, and he has made you his. What is the world, when you talk to the world about this, the world responds in a different way. The world says that God is divisive, that God picks and chooses who he wants to give something to, or if he gives Steve his blessing, it means somebody else isn't going to get one, as if there's, you know, it's in that way. See, so the world is going to always see what God wants to give or what God wants to bless. The world is going to see it as they're going to see it in a more deceitful fashion. And you'll see that in the church as when you start talking about things like predestination and other topics about God calling you to be his children. Well, that means that he doesn't call him. Well, yes, he does. You just refuse to believe. In the same way here, God chose Jacob to be the one that will succeed. They chose to not want that. Isaac didn't want it. Esau didn't want it. But God had chosen it for good, for the good of all. And so we see that here. So you can see a blessing or an application today in these words for us, not just a historical event. So Esau says to his father, we're down toward 38 now. Have you but one blessing, my father? Give anything, oh my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and he wept. So he went from extreme anger to now extreme brokenness, weeping. And so Isaac, his father, answered him with these words. Somebody want to read 39 and 40.
Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother, but when you grow restless you shall break his yoke from your neck.
Okay. So Isaac doesn't, Isaac says, not only don't I have a blessing for you, you are going to live not in, you're going to live in no peace the rest of your life. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be under under your father, but you aren't going to like it. But here I think we can also take a look at one of Emily's statements earlier. Is there a messianic promise in here, or a messianic statement? And I think we can see one in this. And that is when he says that by the sword you'll live, and you shall serve your brother. Okay, well, what is, when we talk about the world, who will serve Christ? Believers or unbelievers? Or both? Both. Now, the unbelievers, maybe not on this side of eternity, but on that side of eternity, they are, even though they are going to be in eternity in hell, they are still going to be under the service of God. And God, and so remember Philippians chapter 2. The name of Christ will be lifted up, and at the name of Jesus, every knee will bow. That's serving, right? And heaven and earth and under the earth, all. And every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of the Father. So, from this sense, we can see that, Esau, if you remain unfaithful to God, if you remain unfaithful to not serving your brother, if you continue to not serve your brother, if you hate your brother, all these things, you're under the very curse of God. And in not serving your brother, you are also not serving the one and only true God, who is the one you are truly serving under. See, that's the thing. That's the other part of it. Our children, our children, while they serve under Dad, they really are serving under God, because God has placed Dad there to watch and care for. And kind of in the same way that we see this blessing that Jacob would be the head of the household to care for them and the world around them. In that same way, God has given Dad that authority in the house. And so when we serve under Dad as his children, we are truly serving under God, because God is the one who put Dad there. Same thing we can say in our state governments and our national governments, all of these kind of things. God is the one who has placed them there. Whether they faithfully serve him or not, it is still God who has placed them there. Fourth commandment stuff. So that's kind of where this is. So this is some fourth commandment stuff. Okay.
Well, Esau was married, right?
Esau was married. He was married to the Hittite
So
ladies.
he had to go home and tell his wife.
He had to go home and tell his Gentile wives. Yeah. So 41 to the end of the chapter.
Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob." When Rebekah was told that what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is consoling himself with the thought of killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother's Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day? Then Rebekah said to Isaac, I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living.
Okay. So we see a few things here now. We can see a little bit of a typology here, you know, maybe not a messianic promise, but certainly a typology to Christ here with Esau, when Esau hates Jacob. And so because Esau hates Jacob, what's he planning on doing? Killing him. And so what happens? Jacob is going to be protected. Why is Jacob going to be protected?
He had the birthright.
He has the birthright. And what's the significance of that?
Protects him.
Okay. Well, that doesn't protect him from Esau killing him.
No.
The birthright won't protect that. That wouldn't protect him from being killed. Why does Jacob need to be protected?
Because the messianic promise is coming.
Yeah, what happens if Jacob dies before the next one in line is born? Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. So here he needs to be protected. And the way that he's going to be protected is what? He's going to go into another land. Go to another land. Where did we see this in the life of Christ?
Fleeing from Herod.
Yeah, he's flee from Herod. Herod is threatening to kill the baby, take the baby and take them to Egypt. And I'll tell you when to come back. Okay? Same thing here. Send him to Laban, to the brother of Rebekah. This is kind of it's a couple of things that come from this. One is it sends him to a safe place, but two, it will be there that he can find a spouse. And what's the significance of finding a spouse there? That's where God sent his dad, or to send for his dad's spouse. That's where Isaac's spouse came from. And so the spouse would continue to come from the same trustworthy line. And so we see that here. And that's why Rebekah says to Isaac, whatever you do, Isaac, don't marry a Hittite woman. Don't marry a Gentile woman, because all will be lost. Now Rebekah lays it upon her that it's her life that would be miserable, which would be certain in the midst of it. But more important than that is this would be something that would really probably cause some challenges in the messianic line. So go there until his anger turns away from you and he forgets what you have done to him. So again, same pictures we saw with Jesus as an infant going to Egypt. We see that here. So again, just kind of points us, out, and it just shows us another typology. Okay? So that gets us through 27. We'll do 28 next week. Maybe we'll get into 29, but we'll certainly do 28 next week. So go in peace, serve the Lord. Thanks be to God. See you next week.
Oh, it's nice having you with us, Steve.
Well, I had to, because Pastor told me I couldn't leave. He said if I ate a criminal, I couldn't leave.
You have free will.
Not according to what Pastor said. He said I couldn't